Hello, Brooklyn. My name is Julia Weeks, one half of Navy Yard Neighbor, a local beat highlighting people and places to create community and belonging at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. We have a great show for you today. I am shortly going to be bringing on my co-host, Isra Pananon, and she will be interviewing photographer Marj Kleinman, who is the founder of Stoop Stories, a documentary portrait project in Brooklyn, New York. So give it up for Isra and Marj.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me, Isra.
Oh, thank you. Well, hello, everybody. Today is a very special day to have you on, Marj, because, as we've been actually talking to a lot of community members the past few weeks, and it's been a hard couple of weeks with the coronavirus and just a lot of other things going on in the world. So we're super stoked to have you on because you are doing the work in the community, telling stories and just like love and kindness, which is basically when I think of Brooklyn, I think of love and kindness, and that's what you're doing. So, oh, look, Tim Stone says, always love your shows. Again, hello, everybody. We're going to start off by showing a clip, I think, that will kind of show your work, and Julia will bring it on shortly, and then we can get into our conversation.
Great. Thanks. Hey, Lara. Oh, my God.
Oh, I don't hear the sound. Oh, there it goes.
I started hanging out more because it was like a refuge. And I noticed that it was the perfect 6 feet from top to bottom.
Love it. Short but really powerful clip, thank you for sharing that with us and sharing your gift with the world. So I think we should start off by just telling us, who you are, where you're from, right? I mean, I know you just shared with Julie and I that you're from Brooklyn, but would love for you to tell our fellow neighbors, your story.
Sure. Thank you. I'm from Boerum Hill, Brooklyn. Literally this house that I'm in. I'm born and raised here, and I've been here. Yeah, I've lived in a couple other neighborhoods, always brownstone focused, Clinton Hill and Park Slope, and I went to college in Boston. But I've always been a Boerum Hill girl.
Awesome. And so I want to know a little bit more about Stoop Stories. But first, I know you are a photographer. Clearly you're interested in the art. So I want to know a little bit more about did you study photography in school, or where this interest came from?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I've always been doing photography since I was little, but I actually studied theater. Growing up, I did art and music and theater. Went to Emerson College, in Boston, for theater production and a little performance. And then actually decided to go into television, children's television, because I wanted to create content for kids. And so I was in children's media for over 20 years doing video, but also interactive games and websites, educational media for PBS Kids, Scholastic, Noggin, companies like that. And then I started doing more and more photography for fun and as a volunteer for nonprofits, I would say 15 years ago, and professionally 4 or 5 years ago. So just more focused on it, and still having the producer hat and the writer hat as well. I'm sort of one of, jack of all trades, like a lot of us creatives.
Love it. I always find that I'm learning more about I'm working in communications these days and learning more about the different functions. There's creatives, and there's people that do social media, then there's people that do the story writing and the editorial, and I just find that yeah, I mean, what you do is a gift. And so I want to talk now a little bit more about Stoop Stories and where that idea came from. And, you know, I mean, it is like, to me, it's like really magical to like connect with neighbors and like tell the everyday stories that people will never hear about. And so I want to know like what gave you the inspiration to start it.
Sure, sure. And I see that Tim commented they love PBS Kids in Noggin. They have two girls, 5 and 8. And I just want to say it's a good segue into Stoop Stories because basically toward the beginning of lockdown, I decided, let's do some family portraits. They can be on the top of the stoop. I can be on the bottom. It's social distance. We'll bring some joy and giggles to the kids and to me too. I was solo quarantining, so there was a connection. And I had actually done this project, by the way, over 10 years ago. I had done a mini version of Stoop Stories with my dad and his friends and neighbors that had come to this neighborhood in the late 60s and just talking to them about what it was like back then. So I sort of resurrected it. And I was inspired by a few other things, which I can talk about. But so it started with families and really kind of became these little play sessions. And then eventually I also started doing essential workers and small business owners. And once after George Floyd was killed, we really committed to also asking everybody about racial injustice as well. So we've been trying to make sure we're representing all different groups. And it's a portrait project, but it's really turned into a social justice documentary series. So we tell their story with images and with text that we interview them, but then we're also doing some video as well.
Well, first, I will say thank you for using your privilege to tell these stories. I think it's really important to do that right now. So snaps and claps for that. I do want to get into like a little bit more of the stories later, but I want to have Julia pull up. I think she has some actual snapshots from Stoop Stories that I just kind of want to show the audience because I don't know if they've been to your website yet. But anyways, hopefully she'll bring it up and we can just kind of flip through. And oh, here it's coming up now. Oh, right.
Oh, wow.
Look at your face. Yeah. But I'm hoping you can kind of walk us through, like, look, there's
this is a good one to start with, actually. Do you want to?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I'd
Okay.
love to hear about how this came about. And
this family's incredible, and they're a block from me. I met through a friend, and Eleanor, and it was Simon's 18th birthday they said, oh, this is a good time to come by. And Simon's on the top step left, stage right, top left. And he had just done this mural of George Floyd on the wall, if you can see it. And it's in chalk, and it's absolutely beautiful. And it was incredibly moving. And it says, happy birthday, Simon, on the stoop as well. But so we did the portrait. We did the portrait on that day, and so they're a multiracial family. It's multi-generational. We've got the kids, the parents, and the grandma, who's come from Jamaica with her son when he was like 10, and they're immigrants. So they had this whole story that they shared with me, and it was really incredible. And just what it's like to be mixed race, and what's happening with the protests and stuff like that. So it was special to meet them.
And can I ask, did you search them out, or they were like, or you knew them and they were willing to like share their story? Because I do think that's like, it's really fascinating to like talk about actually the process of like storytelling and all that good stuff. So I'd love to hear about like what your process is.
Sure. Well, at the beginning, and this one is a good one to comment on, related to that in a second. But at the beginning, it was started with really the Borum Hill Facebook group said, like, people post about their businesses if you want to. Everybody's really struggling. So I was like, I'll do some family portraits. I'll charge like very little. I'll donate some of it to the COVID relief. We were all just trying to figure out what we were going to do. It was just, everybody was so, I think we were all sort of triggered. So it started that way. And I got requests. So lots and lots of families started requesting at once. And there was this whole movement, I may as well talk about now, called the Front Steps Project. It was started by two women in Massachusetts, Kristen and Carlo. And I really hope I got their names right. And they started doing these front steps photos from a distance in Massachusetts. And then all of a sudden, all these other places started doing it. So I had actually seen someone doing it, maybe in Arizona on Instagram. And it sort of said to me like, oh, go grab your Stoop Stories project off the shelf and start it again. And what's been amazing is that all these photographers all over the world now have been doing the Front Steps project, and we've gotten to know each other. I have 2 friends in Brooklyn that are also Front Steps photographers, and we're all collaborating. And even though my project's a little different, I'm part of that community as well. And then just to add to that, then I started to approach people directly that were, not families that wanted a whole portrait session, but really just saying, I would love to get your story. I want to make sure I'm talking to essential workers and different types of, people from all different backgrounds. So I started addressing people directly, especially activists and stuff like that.
I actually, I love that you're talking about Front Steps and how it's like, someone's project turned into a project for you. We actually have a friend who started a Stoop meditation. And
you know them? I've been trying to do their Stoop Stories since March.
So, well, Stoop meditation started as a, meditation on the stoop, and then it just kind of grew, and I feel like it just becomes a movement, right? So like one person does it, it becomes a model for someone else, and then it's the gift that keeps on giving. And I really think that's just the mark of like a really healthy and loving community. So again, thank you for what you do. I just want to shout out to the folks in the crowd. You have a Ken Green Mountain Kleinman, hi from the Vermont crowd, and then of course,
hi Uncle.
So, Tim Sohn says definitely checking out the website, and then Sri Srinivasan says watching from Manhattan, so cool to learn about this, and it definitely is. So thanks to them for tuning in. So let's keep moving on some of the stories or the pictures that Julia's brought up here. So tell me about this family on the fire escape. It kind of freaks me out to look at this, but I would love to hear about more.
Oh, no. I mean, it was a great example of not everybody has a stoop, right? And sometimes a stoop is just a state of mind. It's more a metaphor or a platform. But these guys actually it was hard to choose because we did something in front of their door, and then we did something in front of this beautiful carriage house next to them. And then we were like, let's do the fire escape. No, there was only a moment where the little one was like standing next to her mom, and I was like, is someone holding him? I just really want to make sure, because I was across the street and down below. A few photographers have done this kind of thing. These were the most playful kids. I mean, we've had a lot of them, but this was a lot of fun. Do you mind backing up just one slide? Because I just want to mention one thing about the one before. So she's an essential worker in North Carolina that sent this in on her own. So that answers sort of your earlier question. She was just moved. She said, I don't have a cool Brooklyn stoop, but will this do? And she's in a nursing home, in the middle of the COVID crisis. And she's actually an old Airbnb guest of mine. And it turned out to be an incredible story because she got married to her partner of like 30 years that she couldn't marry because she was in the Navy and because of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So it was a very moving story, one of many.
Well, are you comfortable? What's her first thing? Because I would just love to say thank you as a service member myself. I think that is just like incredibly beautiful. And who's cutting onions in here? Stop, please.
That was Kelly, and it's Kelly and Sis, and they've become like family to me over the years. And their daughter Pearl, and I could put the link if you want at some point of their.
I just want to say, so Kelly, thank you, and thank you for serving before the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, because I know it was a really hard time, and I caught the tail end of it. But it's her bravery that it allowed a whole new generation of veterans to serve today. So I'll just give a shout out and say thank you. This picture is really cool. So tell me about these steps and where are they? Are they? Obviously they're here in Brooklyn, but. What neighborhood are they in, and how did you catch this one?
This is also Borum Hill, and actually it was from a family that we interviewed, and that was also great. I mean, every story is beautiful, actually, and very has so many layers to it. But the mother is a therapist specializing in trauma and addiction. So she, I go to these houses, and sometimes I'm like, oh, it's a mom, a dad, 2 dogs, and a kid. But it's like you ask one of them, what's going on with them, and there's like a million things. So the mom, she's dealing with a lot, trying to support her patients right now that have been really struggling with unprecedented psychological issues. And their kids had done this before I came over. So they, a lot of people have been decorating their stoop. There's a woman across from me that does beautiful chalk quotes that she calls chalk therapy. But this was one that the kids did, and it was, the rainbow is actually bleeding onto the sidewalk. It keeps going like blood. Anyway.
I love it. I love it because, you know, when you're talking about like this woman's like a therapist or whatever, and so I'm in social work school too, and we talk about like holding space for people. So like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, she's holding space for so many people, and then you're also holding space for her because, you know, you're telling her story, and you know, it's just beyond lovely. So again, thank you. Oh, I love this photo, and Julia showed me this. I just was like, it's amazing. So tell me about this. I'm assuming they're a couple, but I never want to assume.
No, he's no. They're both single and roommates, but they're like family. And
they're not. Okay.
Lisa, yeah, a lot of people assume that. And Lisa actually is one of my oldest friends in the world. She is my longest friend in the world. And it's been a really, really tough period because her dad was in a nursing home throughout. He got COVID. We thought he survived COVID, believe it or not, at like age 89. And then on his 90th birthday, he passed away. So he did it. So, and she couldn't see him. She, you know, one of zillions of people who weren't able to see their loved ones. So it's been a tough run for her. And she still smiles though. This is the resilience thing that I mention a lot. It's people who are coping right now. They're struggling, but they're also finding joy, from what I can see. Especially those guys. And this is Pinar, yeah.
Yeah, I love this. I think it's Stronger Together, Brooklyn. Sometimes I have trouble like just describing like what it's like to live in Brooklyn because like there's just so much to it, right? But the thing that comes to mind is just there's so much heart and love here, and not to be like so super cheesy, but it's like there's something about the energy here that's just like you can't break us, right? Like like it's hard to live in the New York area, right? There's like lots to like the New York life, but like we're doing it and we're playing together. So let's move into like, tell me more about this picture and like more about like, I know you're talking about like you're doing the work and telling stories about like racial injustice, Black Lives Matter movement, things are going on, but I would love to hear more about this picture in particular.
Sure. This is my neighbor actually, Trion, who was incredibly emotional, understandably. This was mere days after George Floyd was murdered, and I did her family portrait, and then her daughter went back inside, and she came out and talked to me on Insta Live, and did some of these poses. And I actually took this with my iPhone in portrait mode, which is kind of shocking. Some of the iPhone pictures are actually better than my really fancy camera. But yeah, she was incredibly shaken and upset. I mean, I don't want to put her feelings, words to her feelings for her, but she was just sharing from her heart about how she felt, and you can see it in her face. I mean,
I mean, the thing that I see at work, stories stay, lessons go, and so it's kind of that mentality that I take to our interviews here. But like looking at that picture, it's just like we don't need to say anything about it, right? We can feel it, and I'm grateful that she allowed you to capture it, and then you can share it with us. But I mean, what a wonderful set of pictures, so I want to talk more about like you said you grew up or you live in Boerum Hill. I'd love to hear about how the neighborhood's changed, and then I would love to talk about just in general, like how that shaped your meaning of community after like doing this project and talking to different people and interviewing. So let's start with Boerum Hill.
Sure. New York is really, I mean, Boerum Hill has gone through huge changes. I mean, the whole city has, but it was a pretty rough neighborhood when I was a kid. There was a lot of blight, and it was redlined, and a lot of the families that bought, when my parents found this neighborhood, they bought these houses for very, very little, and they fixed them up themselves, and they were SROs, single room occupancies, and there was a lot of crime and drugs and crack deals on the corner. And if anyone has read, I don't mean to laugh at that, as if anyone's read Jonathan Letham's books, Motherless Brooklyn and Fortress of Solitude, they will know exactly what it felt like to live here when I was a kid in the 70s.
Mm.
And then it's just, sorry, it's segued into this, the renaissance of Smith Street, which with all these new fancy little restaurants and boutiques and posh, and that was sort of shocking to see. And then it all kind of came down again. There's so many empty storefronts. I mean, even obviously before COVID, the landlords got, pretty greedy. The rents went way up, and these small businesses can't really make it. So yeah, we're in a bit of a spiral. We've been in one for a while. So the neighborhood, it went from kind of like a bit run down to super fancy, and then it's finding its way again. I'm not sure what's going to happen next.
I think that, essentially the same thing's happening in a lot of neighborhoods in Brooklyn, and where we are, particularly in the Navy Yard, it's the same thing. I mean, I think it's bringing up tensions, right? Where it's like, gentrification is naturally going to cause a lot of tensions, and I have my own feelings with that, right? Like you want to settle in the neighborhood, you're a young professional in here, but you also recognize like the places we occupy and the prices we pay are also driving out people. So it's just this, it's this tension that I think needs to be resolved. And then we now are in the middle of a pandemic that's obviously magnifying it in not good ways. So relating it to like the art and the stories you're telling, I think it's really important, right? Because I think it's a call to action to really start to understand each other and families and who we are in this neighborhood, and to just really figure out how to band together and partner. So I want to talk more about like, so you've been taking photos of families and getting, talking to them and becoming intimate with them. So how has that shaped your meaning of community? So the question is, what does community really mean to you?
Right. Well, I have to say, I was thinking about this earlier. I'm an only child, growing up as an only child, and kind of in a very, at the time, all these young couples were buying these houses, as I said, and fixing them up. And we were very tight. We were very close-knit in the late 60s, early 70s. And the whole neighborhood did things together and block parties and all that. And then a lot of the families started to move away, actually, to Westchester and New Jersey and, Connecticut. And so we didn't actually end up getting to know the new wave of neighbors for some reason. I don't know if it's my parents were getting divorced, like, life happens. And I didn't get to know my neighbors as well going forward, which was kind of sad. And then I have to say, during COVID, I have gotten to know my neighbors. I've gotten to know all these families. I mean, people were saying that they felt more isolated than ever. And in a way, I was seeing more people. I was connecting with more people than I had in a long time, because I met over 80 families. And it's really been lovely. And because I was solo quarantining, it really saved me, because I would have been, I can get very isolated myself here, even with the photo shoots, but it's been lovely connecting. And then we've also built a team working on this project. So, that's my neighbor across the street.
I think that's Julia's signal for me to ask you, so we're at, what number of photo shoots or families are we at tomorrow? So you're at 100, I think you're.
Yeah. Tomorrow's day 100 of Stoop Stories posts. So I've photographed more than, I think, 80 families or individuals, but we've been posting for 100 days tomorrow. So it's kind of it's a milestone.
Yeah, no, it is. And congratulations. And also
Exciting.
thank you. Thank you. It really is a big deal.
Wow, you're welcome. Thank you.
So, I also want to, I want to make sure that people know, like, if they want to contact you or be photographed, like, how do they do that? I mean, do you just take open calls? Like, I would love for you to tell the world, like, how do they get in contact with you?
Sure. Thank you. On the website, and I think I shared the link, on the Stoop Stories homepage, we have a way for you to sign up for a photo shoot. There's two different ways. So if you're a family that wants to do a full portrait session, where you're going to receive, a number of high-res images, and you're going to receive a video about your family, and like it's a whole package. you can purchase a package with discounted prints. If you're an essential worker or an activist or someone that we approach and we think would be a really rich story that needs to be told, we do those for the documentary. There's no charge for that. And it's a strange little hybrid model, but we hope that the families that purchase packages are going to then help fund, the shoots that we do for the documentary project. And there's families that have had their portraits done that don't want to be in the documentary, and that's fine too. But we're focusing on the documentary piece of it. Sarah is my collaborator, my partner. She's saying 100 days and 100 more stories to tell.
That's right. Love it. I mean, so that's great. I hope folks will go, to the Instagram and just, check out all the stories and people you do. Oh, look, there's Julia. Look at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You're everywhere. And we love that. So if folks have questions, please, comment on them now. Looks like Stefan says, having grown up in Manhattan, years later, I now always say Brooklyn is now more New York than Manhattan. So much more flavor. Manhattan, sadly, in my opinion, has lost its edge in so many ways. Well,
I mean, Brooklyn has two. Sorry, I told everybody to move here, and I always joke that, oh no, they listened, because it's gotten, we're very overpopulated here, and it's been, my family was part of one wave of gentrification, but it continues. So it's just, unfortunately, we've lost a lot of the character of the small businesses in New York and other cities as well. So.
So one thing I wanted to ask before we leave here, but what type of equipment do you use? I know you said you've been using your iPhone, but like, do you are you like I'm not good with cameras, so like a mirrorless or a SLR? Like
I shoot mainly with a Canon a Canon 6D full frame DSLR and a zoom, sort of a medium. I'm like, where is it? 70 to 200, I think, for most of the portraits. That one portrait of Treon with the Black Lives Matter sign was, I don't know why that is that we were using the iPhone, but yeah, that was maybe because we were doing the IG Live. But that was the only one that was on the iPhone. And then I have a little mirrorless Olympus OMD E10 that I love that I took throughout India twice. And it shoots gorgeous, even though it's a mirrorless. Everybody loves them now because they're so small and they shoot beautifully. So, yeah, I use a little of everything.
Well, my better half just got a present, a Sony mirrorless camera for our anniversary. So I think she was a little iffy about opening up the box and using it. But after your plug for mirrorless camera now, I hope she will use it more often. She's smiling.
Nice.
So before we leave, I wanted to ask you, like, what advice or what would you want to say to the world right now? I mean, obviously we're grappling with terrible coronavirus and just obviously racial injustice in all of our systems and all over the world. So I wanted to ask you, like, just from your experience and talking to people and again, holding space and photographing people and just being really, intimate with people. Like what would you want to tell the world right now?
Oh my gosh.
I know it's a loaded question, but
it's a big question. I have to say it's been, I meditate every morning as much as I can, and it helps me get centered and grounded. And I just know that the days that I don't meditate, things get a little wacky. I think that finding moments to pause and breathe and just be present are really important right now. I'm trying to do them throughout. I did it right before this because my master's was in child development and educational psychology. And I know what happens, neurologically, our brains are hijacked by this trauma response to all that's going on. There's a lot of fear. And so it's hard to think, the logic brain shuts down when you're in panic and fear, and the language center as well. So then we get flustered and start spinning. And so as much as we can try to just be, find a moment to pause and breathe. And I think, okay, so one thing I've noticed is that, I'll say this, I think when we're triggered, we also tend to go into our stories more, assumptions about what this person meant when they said whatever to me, and what that group must mean by that. And it's whenever we go into stories and assumptions, we make up all kinds of stuff that might not be happening. And so there's a quote that my dad always said that I've been thinking about a lot, which is never assume malice when ignorance remains a possibility. So I have to remind myself all the time, that person that person probably didn't mean anything by that, and it's their stuff, and it might have nothing to do with you. So yeah, trying not to personalize and generalize and assume and all that. Am I rambling?
No, I mean, I think what you said is just really perfect for this time. I mean, tempers are high. I think, as you mentioned the word trauma, like, again, there's actually a good book I've been trying to read, but like, trauma stays in our body, right? In our minds and our hearts and our souls, unless we choose to, have the time and space to take care of it. But like, it stays with us. And, when you're tired, you're angry, you don't want a lot of support, like things are going to come up and you assume things. And so anyways, I think what you said is perfect. And yeah, 100% behind that. And it speaks to the essence of like, the humanity of what you're doing and the stories you're telling. I think it's really important.
Well, thank you.
We're all, I mean, as Brene Brown says, we're all wired for human connection. And I think that's like, again, it's the heart of what you're doing. And it's really, really important work. And so we thank you. We're so grateful to have you as a Navy Yard neighbor. We want everybody to follow Mosaic Marj on Twitter, Stoop Stories on, Stoop.stories on Instagram, right? And Stoop Stories on Facebook.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. We really appreciate you. And yeah, we hope to see you on the Stoop, and we hope everybody else contacts you to, get their stories told and their photographs told. Oh, look, Ken Green Mountain Climbing. Yeah. Take part in Stoop Stories. And again, thank you so much for what you do. And thank you to everyone for being here tonight.
Thank you so much, both of you, Julia and Isra, and everybody for joining. Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye.